I'm going to start by asking you guys for a referral again. I sent out that email message a couple of weeks ago, or last week or the week before, about last week on the referral. So if you know of a loan officer that you think would be a good fit for this company and a good culture match, I just want an introduction to people, and I'm not trying to recruit anybody. I really am just trying to build relationships. Eventually it'll lead to recruiting, I hope, for sure. But more than anything, just I need to get to know more people. And the more, it's really interesting, the more people that I meet, the more I'm like, well, I would hire that guy, right? Because a lot of it's just, once you get to know somebody, you can tell whether or not you'd really like to be with them. I mentioned that I met, I went to that networking event a couple of weeks ago that Go Coaching put on here in town. Mo Ismail was there, and then but I met like 6 or 7 loan officers. I'm actually conversing a lot on social media with 2 of them, and so I'm going to reach out to one of them today to see if we can get together just to get to know each other a little bit better. So so that's going really well. But as a reminder, if you introduce me to somebody with a direct message to them that I just want to meet other people and tell them that I'm not trying to recruit them and I won't talk about Zenith. I just want to get to know more people. I'll pay you $500 for that introduction. Then if they come to work here, I'll pay you $5,000. So but the $5,000 will be like a travel voucher credit. So you don't have to pay tax on it. I'll just give you a $5,000 credit for a trip, and then you don't have to pay tax on it. So, if you do 2, that's 10 grand, right? If you do 3, you can have a whole really nice family vacation for 3 or 4 hires. So just keep that in mind, save them up. So that's it. And then I'm going to forward this message. This was out. I don't know if anybody watched, I know Dean watched Barry Habib's interview with Amir Syed this week, the leader of Go Coaching, but he sent out a thing as well, and I'll forward it to you. I don't know if these numbers are right, but he called it Loan Officer Squid Games, kind of sick. Total number of licensed loan officers in 2023, there were 319,000 loan officers that closed at least one loan all year. So that's 319,000 transactions, right? At least, right? And so it is a big deal that somebody just does one. I always say that the people that are in the business that do 1 or 2 deals or 6 deals a year take deals away from you guys, right? So the professionals, the ones that are really in this business, they just pick deals off that you could do. And so right now in 2024, there's 123,000 loan officers total that closed at least one loan in the last 90 days. That's a 61% attrition rate. Pretty significant. And then the total origination volume in 2024 is expected to be up 20% to almost 2 trillion, 1.94 trillion. And in 2025, it's expected to go up another 20% to 2.28 trillion, another 20%. So 40% increase over 2023 in the next 2 years. So Dave Stevens, who you may, for those of you that knew who Dave Stevens was, at one time he was head of FHA, and then he was the president of the NBA for a long time. He just passed away. He grew up in Denver. He started his mortgage career in Denver, and he just recently passed away from cancer. But he was projecting on a few calls. Because he was a consultant for Fairway, and Steve Jacobson would interview him. And one of the things that he said, he goes, the next, not this year, but starting in 2025 and going forward, he thinks it's going to be the next biggest housing run we've ever seen. I'm not sure how that's going to happen. I'm not sure, but when really smart people like that see that as an opportunity, it's going to be pretty significant. And so staying committed to this long-term is the key to this business, and having a long-term approach and then showing up and doing the work every single day is obviously the key to success. And your ability to go out and ask for referrals and being comfortable with that is going to be key. So I reached out to Matt Brua last week, who's a good buddy, and Giuseppe knows him. Matt and we all worked together at Majestic Mortgage way back in the day. And then when we were at Fairway, he eventually moved to Fairway as well. And he's still there. He's been there he's in the teens number of years that he's been there, and he's in the core program. He's actually a core coach as well. But I called him last week to talk about this subject of asking for referrals. And I said, I go, do you have, like, how often do you do this? He goes, well, I'll tell you what my scripts are and everything else, but first let me tell you my success story. He goes, I had 8 past client referrals in January. And I was like, dude, what? And he goes, I had 8 past client referrals in January. Like, dude, that's amazing. I said, that's going to be 100 past client referrals. He goes, I'll get more than that. He goes, January's always light. He goes, I'll get more than that this year because as we get busier. And I said, well, so he shared a couple of his scripts with me. I switched over and I have them typed up, and it's how he asks for referrals. I have 2 scripts. One is how he asks for a referral. I'm sorry. It's how he calls clients who haven't given him a Google review, because they use experience.com and he hates it. And similar to what you're doing, Giuseppe, but he's getting the customer, he calls him and he either leaves him a message or talks to him about giving him that 5-star review, giving him a review on Google. So he shared that script. And then he also shared the script of what he says to a customer if he's calling them like for the annual review and leaving them a voice message and asking for the referral or what he would say. So it was so good. And I recorded it and I have the scripts, but the scripts I have typed up don't do it justice. So I asked him if he would be on this meeting today, but he's in Mexico this week. And he's scheduled to be on this call with us next Friday. So it's going to be really fun to listen to him. First of all, he's a great guy. And Giuseppe, he talks about how we gave him the purchase and the refinance breakdown. And he raves about the purchase and refinance. He goes, I still use that on every single transaction. And he goes, and here's what I do. Here's how I ask clients that are in process with me. Once I walk through the numbers and I show them the numbers, people always tell me, oh my God, this is so easy. Thank you for showing me this. Everybody else who shows me numbers, it's very confusing. He goes, this is really crystal clear. And it tells me exactly what I need to know, which is what's my monthly payment and how much do I need at closing? And which are the 2 things I think the only thing anybody ever really cares about when they're getting a mortgage. How much money do I need? And what's my monthly payment going to be? Because that's everybody's fears, right? Like those are the 2 things that they're worried about. And when the customer goes, thank you so much. And he said, okay, so who are your friends and family that I can show this to? He'll ask them that right there on the call. And it's like, I don't know, I'll let you know. I was like, okay, great. Well, whenever anybody is ready to, and so he just had some really great asking for referral scripts that he's going to share with us next week. And you can check out his numbers. His last name is spelled BRUA. I think he closed 190 deals last year, I think, or last 14 months is what we can see on MMI. But, and he said he closed 7 deals in January, but he wrote 24 pre-approvals or some shit. Like it's significant. And or maybe it was more than that, but, and he's really fanatical about, he's on the phone all the time. Like he's like, I got to try to get 75 talk tos a weekend. That's my job. Get 75 talk tos a week. And so it is just this, I've been writing about it. If you're not doing enough business because you don't talk to enough people, and the loan officer with the most friends wins. So I'm going to save the scripts. I'll send them to you. I had Amy transcribe them for me because we went on to a Zoom call and Amy transcribed them and typed them up. But he'll be on the call next Friday, so you'll definitely want to catch that. And that's all I have. Does anybody have anything else they want to share or talk about today?
I had an idea. I appreciated, Dave, and your Friday focus talking about smaller wins. I feel like I bit off a lot with my commitment lockdown. And so maybe not hitting it every week, but just trying to reflect on like, okay, what did I actually accomplish though? Like I should still be proud of that. So just taking time to reflect on like small wins, moving the needle, however you can, even if it's not hitting the big goal that you set for yourself. So just good to remember.
Well, that's a really good point. And you know what, it's very timely because this is what Chad and I have been talking about a lot, where, and this is a subject matter that Ryan, he's not on the call, but Ryan and I got into pretty deeply in November because he was pretty down on himself. He didn't have the year that he wanted to. Things were going not great for him. And now he's doing great. And his whole attitude, his entire demeanor changed. And it started with this. Here's what it started with. It started with him agreeing to keep the promises that he was making to himself, with like one promise, right? Like I make one promise to myself, I'm going to do this one thing. And for him, it was getting up at 5:30 every morning and working out every day, because he had a bad snoozing habit, right? He would hit the snooze. It's like, I don't want to. And so he just committed to that commitment lockdown. He wrote me 5 checks to, does everybody know this? He wrote the checks to Spire. And so, because he's like, I'm going to get up every morning and I'm going to make this promise to myself. And we're spending a lot of time in the book Psycho-Cybernetics, and it just talks about what happens to your self-esteem and what happens to your self-confidence and your self-worth when you make a promise to yourself and then you break it. And it just one little promise that you make and that you don't do it, you think it doesn't have any consequences, and it has tons of them because you said you were going to do this thing. You're not doing it. You know, you're not doing it. And you can ignore it if you want to, but it eats at you. It's in the back. It's in your subconscious, and it gives you shit all the time. Because it was one of the things I said to Chad, we got to be really careful of the things we say to ourselves because we're always listening. And that simple act changed everything for him. And it's really powerful. And then to give yourself credit for it, right? Because we don't do that either. We never, all right, I did that. The first time that you do it, you're like, all right, I did this thing I said I was going to do. That felt great. I'm going to do it again. And reminding yourself, because mostly we just beat ourselves up. Well, yeah, I did it. You know, it's not that hard. I was like, no, that's exactly that's also your subconscious giving you shit. Right. So, that's a great recognition, Jonathan. It really is, because it's really an important part of developing yourself as a leader. And I said this to Dean the other day, you need to write this down on your desk somewhere. I'm a top producer, regardless of how much production you're doing, you need to start writing it, because if you're investing time in yourself to become better at this, if you're investing time in reading and learning and practicing, and you are going to be a top producer, but you have to start thinking about it now. You can't wait to become a top producer before you can say it, right? So start saying it right now. It's like, I'm a top producer. It should be part of your 5-year story. And so it's having a big impact, right? So those are the things that really matter. It's all the little things. It always is the little things. Anybody else? Right on. Let's have an awesome day, and we'll see you guys on the call at noon. Thanks, everyone.